They didn't text you back. They pulled away right when things got good. They looked you dead in the eyes and said, I don't need anyone. And you're sitting here wondering, does this person even feel anything? Here's the thing nobody tells you. That pulling away, that silence, that wall they put up right when you got close, that might actually be the closest thing to love you're ever going to see from them. Not because love is supposed to hurt, but because their nervous system is wired completely different from yours. Stay with me, because what I'm about to break down it is going to completely rewrite how you read an avoidant. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. Drop the word wired in the comments right now. It tells me you're watching. It tells me you need this. And it tells me to keep making content like this for you. Let's start with the truth. The painful, uncomfortable, nobody wants to say it truth. Most people who love an avoidant, they spend years waiting. Waiting for a text back. Waiting for the I love you first. Waiting for them to stop running. Waiting to finally feel chosen. And the whole time they're waiting, they're also doubting. Maybe they don't love me. Maybe I'm too much. Maybe I'm reading into nothing. But here's what nobody ever tells you. You probably weren't reading into nothing. You were reading the wrong language. See, an avoidant doesn't love the way you love. They don't love loud. They don't love with words. They don't love with grand gestures and morning texts and just thinking about you calls. They love in a completely different dialect. And if you don't know the dialect, you will miss it every single time. That's what this is about today. Learning the dialect. Not so you can excuse bad behavior. Not so you can convince yourself crumbs are a full meal. But so you can actually read what's in front of you clearly with your eyes wide open and your heart protected. Because clarity is power. And right now, a lot of you are living without it. First, let's talk about how the avoidant brain got here. This is important because you can't understand the behavior without understanding the blueprint. An avoidant attachment style doesn't come from nowhere. It doesn't just fall from the sky one day like, surprise, you hate vulnerability now. No, it gets built, brick by brick, year by year, wound by wound, usually starting in childhood. Picture this, a little kid falls down, scrapes a knee, starts crying. And instead of being held, they're told to stop crying. Or the parent is emotionally unavailable, distracted, cold. Or the comfort they needed came with strings attached, came with criticism, came with dismissal. So that child's developing brain learns something that burns itself into their nervous system like a tattoo. Needing people is dangerous. When I reach for someone, I don't get what I need. So the safest thing I can do is not need. That's it. That's the whole avoidant story, right there. Self-sufficiency as survival. I don't need anyone isn't a personality quirk. It's armor that a child built to protect themselves from a specific kind of pain. And now that child is an adult, and they're in a relationship with you, and they still have that armor on, not because they don't feel, but because feeling real feeling, vulnerable feeling is the most dangerous thing in the world to them. Their whole system was built around avoiding that exposure. So when you wonder, why do they shut down when things get emotional? That's why. Their nervous system is firing off alarm signals. Asterisk warning. Too close. Too vulnerable. Shut it down. Shut it all down. Asterisk, and they do. Not to hurt you, because that's the only way they know how to survive emotional intensity. So what does avoidant love actually look like? Okay, here we go. This is the part you actually came for. Because love from an avoidant looks nothing like what you see in movies. It doesn't look like flowers and long conversations, and I've never felt this way about anyone. It looks quiet. It looks functional. Sometimes it looks invisible. But when you know what you're looking for, it's actually everywhere. Sign 1. They show up when it matters, not every day. Not for every little thing. Not for the Tuesday night you just want to vent about your coworker. But when something real happens, they're there. You got into a car accident? They're on the phone in 2 minutes. You lost your job? They're at your door. You had a health scare? They're researching doctors. See, an avoidant can handle crisis love better than daily intimate love. Why? Because crisis love has a clear role. There's a problem. They can solve it. There's an endpoint. Daily intimate love is just open-ended vulnerability with no clear task, and that's where they freeze. But that showing up in a crisis, that's real. Don't dismiss it just because they disappeared for 3 days before that. Sign 2. They stick around. This one is so overlooked. An avoidant leaves. That's what they do when they feel smothered, when they feel pressured, when the relationship starts demanding too much emotional intimacy. They ghost, they pull back, they create distance. But here's the flip side. If an avoidant stays, that is a massive statement. Every day they're still in that relationship, they're fighting their own biology. Their nervous system is constantly whispering, run, pull back. You don't need this. You're too exposed. And they're choosing you anyway. That's not nothing. That's actually enormous. People who love easy don't understand what it costs an avoidant to stay. But it costs them something real. And when they keep paying that cost for you, that's love. Sign 3. They let you see their habits. Avoidants are deeply private people. Not fake private where they're hiding secrets and lying. Genuinely private. Their routines are sacred. Their rituals are theirs. Their space is their space. They do not let just anyone into that world. So when they start letting you in, when they show you how they make their coffee in the morning, when they let you into their apartment and it doesn't feel like a performance, when they tell you their weird little hobby they've never told anyone about, that is intimacy for an avoidant. That is them handing you a piece of themselves. You might not recognize it because it doesn't come wrapped in rose petals. But that Tuesday morning when they let you sit quietly in their kitchen while they read their book without turning it into a conversation, without performing for you, just existing next to you, that's them saying, you're safe to me. Hear that. Sign 4. They introduce you to their world. I'm not just talking about meeting their friends. I'm talking about something deeper. An avoidant keeps their worlds very separate. Work people, family people, friends, you, all in different buckets, all protected from each other. Because the more overlap there is, the more exposed they are. The more people know the full picture, the more vulnerable they become. So when they start blending those worlds for you, when they bring you to something that matters to them, when they mention you to their sister, when they take you to their favorite spot that no one else knows about, they're pulling down walls. Slowly, carefully, but they're doing it. And for an avoidant, that is an act of serious trust. Don't rush it. Don't demand it. But when it happens, recognize it. Sign 5. They get jealous even if they'd never admit it. Here's one that's going to surprise some of you. Avoidants tend to regulate emotion by pretending emotion doesn't exist. They have something called emotional deactivation. When a feeling gets too big, too intense, too threatening, they shut it off. Or they think they shut it off. But jealousy has a way of slipping through. You mention a guy at work and something shifts in their face. They go quiet when you talk about an ex. They suddenly have an opinion about you going out Friday night with friends they've never met. They're not going to say, I'm jealous. An avoidant would rather swallow glass than say, I'm jealous. Because jealousy means they care. And caring means they're vulnerable. And vulnerable means danger. So they'll dress it up as logic, as advice, as a random observation. But the jealousy is the feeling underneath. And feelings don't slip through for people who don't love you. Sign 6. They come back after distance okay. This one. Let's be really clear here. Because this one is complicated and I want to be honest with you. Avoidants create distance. That's part of the pattern. When things get too close, too intense, too real, they pull away. They go cold. They disappear for a bit. They become suddenly very busy. And if you're on the other end of that, it feels like rejection. It feels like they don't want you. But watch what happens after the distance. If they come back, if they don't just vanish permanently, but instead regulate, breathe, and find their way back to you, that tells you something. It tells you that the pull toward you is strong enough to survive their fear. Because here's the thing. The avoidant deactivates when they feel overwhelmed. But if there's no love there, they just stay deactivated. They don't come back. The coming back, even if it's slow, even if it's quiet, even if it's just a, hey, 3 days later, that's them saying, I panicked, but I'm choosing this. Now, I have to be honest here. There's a difference between someone who cycles through this pattern and is genuinely trying to heal, and someone who uses this as a manipulation tool. If they come back only to create distance again, in an endless loop, with no growth, no conversation, no accountability, that's not love doing something brave. That's a cycle doing something harmful. But if they come back and they show up a little more each time, that's an avoidant fighting their pattern for you. Sign 7. They open up even a little, an avoidant talking about feelings voluntarily. That's like a cat walking into a bathtub. It almost never happens. Their whole internal language is built around keeping emotional content contained, rationalized, or avoided entirely. So when they tell you something real, when they say, that actually bothered me, instead of, I'm fine. When they say, I don't know how to do this, instead of pretending they have it all together. When they tell you something from their childhood they've never told anyone. Stop. Honor that moment, because it costs them something real. An avoidant doesn't share vulnerabilities casually. They test the water 1,000 times before they put a toe in, and they are watching your reaction very closely. If you minimize it, they shut down. If you overreact, they shut down. If you use it against them later, they're gone. But if you receive it quietly, without making a big deal, without turning it into a whole thing, they'll bring you more. Slowly. Over time. That's how avoidant intimacy grows. Not in floods, in drops. Sign 8. They make space for you in their life. Avoidants love their autonomy. That's not a character flaw, it's how they regulate. Alone time is how they decompress, recharge, process, survive. So their life is usually structured around protecting that space. Their schedule is theirs. Their routines are theirs. Their home is theirs. But love changes the math. When an avoidant starts restructuring their life to include you, when they keep a drawer clear for you, even without naming it, when they adjust their Saturday morning routine to overlap with yours, when they rearrange things so you fit, that's not small. That's them making room where room was previously defended. They're saying, I rearranged something for you. And for someone whose autonomy is their core protective mechanism, that is a significant act of love. Sign 9. They fight with you. Wait. Stay with me on this one. Because I know how weird it sounds. Avoidants disengage. That's their default move in conflict. Stonewalling. Shutting down. Walking away. I'm fine, when they're clearly not fine. But here's what I want you to notice. If an avoidant fights with you, actually engages, actually argues, actually pushes back, that means they care enough to stay in it. Total emotional withdrawal from a relationship, that's when the avoidant is done. When they're checked out, they go quiet. Not cold in the moment quiet. Permanently quiet. The kind where they stop caring what you think. Stop reacting to what you say. Stop getting hurt. So if they're arguing with you, getting frustrated, coming back to a topic even when it's hard, they're still engaged. They're still in it. They're still fighting for something. Conflict means investment. It's uncomfortable and confusing and often handled really badly by the avoidant because they have terrible conflict tools. But the fact that they're there emotionally present enough to fight, that's a signal. Sign 10. They check on you without being asked. This one is quiet. It's easy to miss, but it's real. You mentioned you were nervous about something at work. 3 days later, they bring it up. Hey, how did that thing go? You were sick last week. They ask if you're feeling better. Not once, twice. You said something offhand about a problem you were having. Later, they sent you an article about it. Without announcement, without fanfare, without asking for credit. Just they remembered. They thought about you when you weren't there. They acted on that thought. That's love for an avoidant. It's not wrapped in emotion. It's functional. It's practical. It's quiet, but it's real. They remembered because you matter to them. And they showed up because on some level, even their defended, armored, self-sufficient self couldn't help it. Now what this doesn't mean, because I need to say this clearly. None of this, not a single thing on that list, is permission to accept cruelty. Stonewalling to the point of emotional abuse? Not love. Disappearing for weeks with no communication? Not love. Dismissing your feelings every single time? Not love. Using your vulnerability against you? Absolutely not love. There's a line. And it lives between someone who loves in a different dialect and someone who just isn't loving you at all. An avoidant who loves you will still be inconsistent sometimes, still pull back sometimes, still struggle with words, still go quiet when things get hard. That's the pattern. That's real. But they will also grow. Slowly. They will also apologize, eventually, even if badly. They will also choose you over and over, even when their fear is loud. The question is not, are they perfect? No one is perfect. The question is there movement? Is there growth? Is there choosing? If yes, you might be in something real. If no, you might be in a cycle. And those are two completely different things. What this also does to you. Before we get to what you should do, let's talk about what loving an avoidant actually does to your nervous system. Because it does something, and most people don't realize it's happening until they're already changed by it. When you love someone who runs hot and cold, warm and present one week, distant and unreachable the next, your nervous system calibrates itself around that unpredictability. You become hypervigilant. You read every text for tone. You analyze every silence for meaning. You feel relief when they reach out and dread when they go quiet. That relief-dread cycle becomes addictive, genuinely addictive. Your brain starts treating their warmth like a reward you have to earn, and that's dangerous. Not because the avoidant is trying to do that to you. They usually aren't. But because intermittent reinforcement, present then distant, warm then cold, close then gone, is one of the most psychologically compelling patterns a human brain can get hooked on. It keeps you working. It keeps you wondering. And the more anxiously attached you are, the deeper this hooks you. Because anxious attachment and avoidant attachment fit together like a key in a lock. The anxious person chases. The avoidant retreats. The avoidant retreats. The anxious person panics. The anxious person panics. The avoidant retreats further, around and around. Neither person is the villain. Both are running old programming. But the cost is real. You can lose years in that cycle. You can lose confidence in that cycle. You can start to believe that love is supposed to feel like anxiety. So this is me naming it for you. The constant uncertainty you feel, that's not love. That's a trauma bond trying to dress itself up as passion. Real love, even with an avoidant, should have some baseline of safety. Some baseline of, I know this person is going to come back. Some baseline of, even when it's hard, I know we're okay. If you don't have that baseline, if every single interaction feels like a test you might fail, that's not a love problem. That's a pattern problem. And you can choose differently. What you need to do with this information, okay. So you've heard all of this. You're seeing some of these signs in your person. What do you actually do with it? First, stop trying to make them love you your way. That's the trap most people fall into. They want the avoidant to love them with words, with presence, with emotional availability. And when the avoidant can't do it, at least not yet, at least not right now, they take it as absence of love. It's not always absence of love. Sometimes it's just a different language. But here's the other side of that. You also cannot shrink yourself forever waiting for someone to learn your language. Understanding their dialect is healthy. Erasing your own needs to accommodate their discomfort permanently, that's not sustainable. That's not love either. That's just slow disappearing. So learn the dialect, but don't forget your own. Second, stop rewarding the distance. I know that sounds harsh, but a lot of people who love avoidance have this pattern where they chase during the withdrawal. They text more, they call, they show up, they try harder. And that chase, that desperate reaching, actually confirms the avoidance belief that closeness is overwhelming. It triggers more distance. Your need feels like pressure to them, and pressure triggers the exact retreat you're trying to stop. The healthiest thing you can do during an avoidance withdrawal is regulate yourself. Stay present. Stay grounded. Don't collapse. Don't perform calm, actually find it. Go for a walk. Call your friend. Work on your thing. Let them come back without it costing you your dignity. Because the version of you who is calm and grounded is the version they are most likely to come toward. Third, build your own life. This is not a trick. This is not about playing games. This is not about making them jealous. It's genuinely what's healthy for you. Avoidants are attracted to people who have their own thing going on, who aren't waiting by the phone, who have friendships, goals, interests, a whole life. That independence doesn't threaten the avoidant, it actually creates the safety they need to come closer. Because when your whole emotional world revolves around them, it puts an unbearable weight on the relationship. It makes closeness feel suffocating. The clinging pushes them out. The fullness draws them in. Not because it's manipulation, because a full person is less terrifying to love. Fourth, and this is the hard one, know your limits. Know what you can actually live with long term, not what you can endure because you love them. Not what you can tolerate because walking away is terrifying. Not what you can justify because you've already invested so much. What you can actually live with from a place of genuine okayness, because an avoidance growth is real, but it's slow. And you deserve to make a clear-eyed choice about whether you can hold space for that pace, without resentment, without martyrdom, without losing yourself in the waiting. That's the honest question. Not, do I love them enough? You clearly love them enough. The question is the pace of this growth something I can actually live with? Or am I just hoping it gets better while quietly suffering? Those are two different things, and only you know the real answer. The bigger picture attachment styles are not destiny. I want to say that again because it matters. An avoidant can grow. An avoidant can heal. An avoidant can learn slowly, imperfectly, sometimes frustratingly slowly to show up differently. Not with grand overnight transformations. Not with a single conversation that cracks them open and suddenly they're emotionally available and saying exactly what they feel. It works in small shifts. A conversation they stay in longer than they used to. An apology they manage to actually say out loud. A moment where they notice they're pulling away and they stop and they come back instead. Small shifts over time add up to something real. But, and this is important, they cannot do it for you. They can only do it because they want to. Because they've decided on their own terms that the cost of their armor is greater than the cost of letting it down. That decision has to be theirs. You cannot love someone into emotional availability. You cannot be patient enough or understanding enough to change someone who isn't choosing to change. What you can do is be a safe person if they decide to. What you can do is model what secure attachment looks like. What you can do is make clear with kindness and firmness what you need and hold to that. And then let them decide. That's your side of the street. Their growth is theirs. And the difference between an avoidant who is working on themselves genuinely and one who is just managing you until they check out. You can feel it. Maybe not with your head, but with your gut. You've probably known for a while. The question is whether you're listening to it. Because sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for them is to be honest about what you see. Not dramatic, not an ultimatum, just honest. This is what I see. This is what I need. I need to know if we're actually moving in that direction. That conversation is terrifying for an avoidant, but the ones who love you will not walk away from it. They might go quiet for a moment, but they'll come back to it. The ones who don't love you or who love you but not enough to do the work, they'll disappear. And as painful as that is, that answer is also information. Clarity is always better than confusion, even when clarity hurts. One more thing I want to address the people who are reading all of this and feel confused, because you're seeing some of these signs in your person, and you're also experiencing real pain, real loneliness inside the relationship, real moments where you feel invisible, real nights where you wonder if you're fooling yourself. I see you, and I want to say something clearly. Recognizing that an avoidant loves you in a different dialect does not mean you have to accept that dialect as enough. Understanding someone's psychology does not obligate you to stay. Compassion for their wounds does not require you to absorb the damage from those wounds indefinitely. You can fully understand why someone is the way they are. You can have real compassion for their history, their fear, their armor, and still decide this is not the relationship for you. That's not cruelty. That's self-respect. Real love requires two people who are each willing to grow, not at the same speed, not in the same way, but in the same direction. If you're doing all the growing and all the accommodating and all the understanding and all the waiting and there's no movement on the other side, that's not a different dialect. That's a one-sided relationship, and you deserve more than that. You deserve someone who is trying, who is imperfect and complicated and sometimes maddening but trying, who shows you, over time, in the ways they can, that they want to be in this with you. Not perfectly, but genuinely. That's the bar. Not perfect love. Genuine love. Those are different things, and the difference matters enormously. So, if you've been sitting there watching someone who doesn't text first, who pulls away when things get good, who says, "I'm fine," when they're clearly not fine, and you've been wondering whether any of it is real, look at the full picture. Not just the moments they went cold. Look at the moments they showed up in a crisis. Look at the moments they stayed when leaving would have been easier. Look at the mornings they let you sit in their kitchen just being there. Look at the random Tuesday when they asked how that thing went. Look at the drawer they quietly kept clear for you. Look at the fight they stayed in when they could have walked out. Love from an avoidant looks like showing up imperfectly and repeatedly. It looks like choosing you even when their whole nervous system is screaming at them to run. It looks like growth slow, messy, costly, but real. That's the dialect. Now you speak it. What you do with that knowledge is up to you, but at least now you know what you're reading. Drop wired in the comments if this hit. Share it with someone who needed to hear it. And if you want to go deeper on attachment and what it actually takes to build something real with someone who runs from love, you know where to find the next one.